Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown!
Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finney, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Speed Radio. Of course, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club of Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Dustin Schutte along for the ride as well. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Speed Radio powered by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, where you can get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com with the best selection of new and used vehicles. And Endeavor Hospitality and the family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like BB's Market, where you will find me this Friday. And I cannot wait. Did not expect to be there. Absolutely. That's another story altogether. But on the show today, Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. Looking forward to talking to Bob. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indianapolis Star, Indy Star, as the state finals coming up this weekend, and Rick Bozich, as we unfortunately will wrap up the IU basketball season with him. Not really, but it's over, so kind of. But it will continue because we have plenty of news that will go on. Who stays, who goes. I put up a tweet yesterday. I set the line for new faces on the calendar next year at 5.5. Which originally I said 6 because that's what I thought, but I'm like, all right. Someone said you got to give me the hook, and I'm like, well, you're right. So I had to throw the half in there. So I made it at 5.5. I thought that was the spot. I thought about it, so I put the line at 5.5 for new faces on the calendar that you have to buy. And let's see, how about that column, John Boy? You have that column that I sent you?
I do. Give me just a second.
Leon Anguilana. Let's see. Talking basketball. I'm reading an article in the Star here. Into the Eyes of a Man. Let's see. Well, you got to get too far into that. But anyway, here's an article that I'm reading off of. Don't worry if you can't see it, but mass exodus. The University of Rhode Island basketball players are fleeing Archie Miller's program. This word is from Go Local Providence Sports outlet up there from a couple of days ago. It's kind of funny. Athletic director Thorbjorn. Well, man, you got an athletic director named Thor, first of all. You can drop it, John. You have an athletic director named Thor.
It's a great name.
Okay, it gets better. This is a perfect match. Lil Rhodey right in the middle of all this. You got an athletics director named Thor. Then they had some big Rams boosters, Rhode Island Rams or the Rams. Tom Ryan is the former CVS CEO. So, again, it's just people wanting to control things that have money, that don't know what they're doing. And then the former president of Vornado Realty Trust reportedly donated significant sums to make this deal work. In the 1990s, Finicelli, whatever his name is, was real estate partners with Donald Trump. So it all makes sense. Miller is set to receive payments in excess of $2 million a year in the third, fourth, and fifth year of his new state contract. So this must come from the state. So that makes it even better. And then they go on to say he came to Rhode Island after being fired at Indiana University. His tenure with the Hoosiers was widely criticized. One article said COVID-19 complications didn't help, but the fact remains Miller never made the NCAA tournament in 4 seasons. As head coach at Indiana, never finished above 500 in conference play. His teams could never get out of their own way, couldn't get over the hump, couldn't find a steady win streak ride. It was all his fits, starts, and stops that would eventually fall at the hands of programs, but whatever that says. But 9-22, he goes at little roadie, little starter for your day.
Not an ideal start to his tenure at Rhode Island, I would say.
No, they only lose one to graduation. One senior.
How many does it say? Does it say how many are in the portal?
Of the top 6 scorers, yes. I'm sorry, let me get to that. They were 4 more starters. They lose one senior to graduation. Senior Marleek Martin leaves. And then 4 more starters and rotation players have entered the transfer portal, including the top 3 assist men, the top 2 scorers, and one of the only big men.
Wow. How about that?
Of the top 6 scorers, 4 are departing, and one of the returning players is Joseph Bilal, who is coming off of an injury and only played 8 games last year.
Huh. Well,
one potential bright spot is Alabama transfer Alex Chicau, native of Paris, France, joined Alabama as the number 65 player in the 2025 class. I'm not sure if he has his concealed carry permit or not.
I don't know if
too soon.
I don't know if from Alabama to Rhode Island. That's quite a change.
Tells you a lot. Wow. So for those of you who still think that the people were too hard on our little roadie, the proof is in the pudding. But all I know is this is what amazes me. Okay. He walked away with Indiana over those 4 years with $26 million.
Mm-hmm.
And it just said on here he's set to receive $2 million a year. I mean, this is funny. When you have an entire column laid out about your salary after your first season, that ain't good.
Right. Well, I mean, 9-22, and then you have all these players transferring. Now, I will say that that's the nature of the beast when you have a new head coach coming in these days. So
yeah, but it's when you go 9-22 and what we know about Lil Rhodey.
Right.
I'm sure it didn't change.
No, probably nothing. I'm guessing nothing's right. Nothing's changed, but I mean, I guess we'll see what happens in year 2, but I can't imagine that there's going to be a lot of optimism.
Here's funny. In each of his first 2 contract years, the coach shall receive, in addition to his base salary, the sum of $750,000 as a guaranteed portion of the gate receipts for all home games administered by the athletic. I've never seen that.
No,
I've never seen that. In the 3rd, 4th, 5th contract years, the coach shall receive, in addition, $1 million is the guaranteed portion of gate receipts at all home games. Said amount shall be paid in equal installments. First such
There's got to.
Is that in addition to his?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because this is a state contract because it says, oh, his base salary is 3 times Rhode Island's governor's salary.
Well, I mean, that's probably not uncommon.
That's his base. No, but that's his base salary. And
right.
Once again, he's failing miserably. That's the point. This is these contracts, there is a state contract.
Why would Rhode Island?
But Indiana's was as well, I believe.
Well, I'm sure. I don't understand why Rhode Island would shell out that kind of dough for a basketball coach. No, I don't care who it is. It could be Coach K. It could be Matt Painter. It could be John Calipari. Why would you shell out that kind of money for a head coach? Like you're not gonna.
Did you just really ask that question? Come on.
I did just ask that question.
But you know the answer.
I kind of do, but you could get I'm sure you could have gotten Archie Miller on the cheap.
Not to that jackass.
Well,
he's a proven loser.
Well, that's probably true, but I'm just like, I don't. That makes zero sense to me. But to each their own, I guess. I mean, you never hear about Rhode Island basketball in the first place. It's one thing if it was like a good mid-major, like Gonzaga. Or what Butler used to be. Like I could kind of understand those mid-majors, but you never it's not like Rhode Island's always in the tournament or always a threat. I don't even remember the last time they were in the tournament. It was probably a couple of years ago. I'm sure they won a conference tournament or something at some point, but that's crazy to me. But it just shows how athletic departments have gotten so out of control.
Dumb.
Yes.
Yes. Dumber.
Yes.
There should
all of the above.
Every athletic contract, and I don't care if it's at Indiana or where, should have to go through an independent legal firm. They should always employ an independent legal firm and say, hey, read this contract. And let them come back and say, really? You really? Do you need to give this? Do you need to give that? Because there's just some stupid things that he's getting. Again, I don't know what I don't know what the total
well, here's the thing, though. This is
there are dozens of other incentives layered in the agreement. If Miller were to hit all the incentives for performance, his contract could hit $2.5 million in total compensation in 2 of his contract years. So he's probably only going to get like $2 million a year. So, but that's over 5 years. That's probably guaranteed for $10 million. But that you add that to the 26 that Indiana had to pay him. So that's $36 million. This jackass loser is going to walk away with.
You can't blame him.
Would somebody? Hey, everybody thinks I'm a jackass loser. Give me $1 million. $1 million, and I'll be happy.
I'll do it for 100,000. How about that?
Gee whiz. We got to take a break, unfortunately. We got a great show, though. Bob Kravitz from The Athletic, Kyle Neddenriep from The Star, Rick Bozich, the Hall of Fame writer from WDW.com. And we're back with more, brought to you by Go Team. For those of on the go, whether it's you, your kids, the team, whomever, it's hard to find good, tasty, healthy snacks. For those of you that are on the go, make sure you pick up GoTeen. You can order them at GoTeenBites.com, or you can pick them up at BB's Market. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
My
Good, how are you?
beautiful friend. Hello, beautiful friend.
Hello, how are you?
How are you doing?
Good. You guys gonna sing happy birthday to me?
Happy
Oh, we can.
birthday to
Go on the air.
you?
Happy birthday to
Nah,
you.
never mind.
Hey, Bob, it's also my.
I
birthday,
appreciate the effort.
Bob Kravitz. Happy birthday to you.
That was very moving.
Bob,
Yeah,
we,
Jim
Well, I
Mason
could have.
was
I
your
should have done
birthday.
the what's her name version. What's her name? She's dead.
Marilyn Monroe.
That's it.
Mr.
Happy
President.
birthday to you.
Oh, stop now.
Happy birthday, Mr. Kravitz.
Oh my gosh.
I've never been so uncomfortable in my life.
Bob, today's also my 2-year anniversary of working with this clown.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God! We should have saved that for on the air.
Well, this is behind the scenes. This is why you watch on YouTube.
Yeah, this is why people choose the YouTube version of the show. Here we go.
right.
Stick to your day job, Jim. Or somebody saying that. Someone said there's buzz about Archie going to Providence. Is that true?
That's not happening.
He might go to Providence, right? But it won't be to the school. To the city. Meet with the boys.
What was he, 9-22 at Rhode Island or something?
Yes.
21, or yeah, I guess it would be
Not
I was
very
just
good.
reading about the mass exodus at his program.
Oh, are a bunch of guys leaving?
Oh yeah.
Well, when you're 9-22, you don't mind if they walk out the door.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it wasn't that.
Did you hear what Rick Pitino said about? And it's not a bad thing necessarily, but it reminded me of Deion Sanders.
Yeah,
Someone
a lot of
asked
you guys
about-
won't be here.
Yeah, he said that these guys won't be here. They won't want to play for me.
That's true. He wants to get back to the top.
All right, here we go. Oh no, we still got a few seconds. I thought we had less time than we do.
John, Mr. Patience Alden.
What's he got to have patience about? He gets to
Can't
listen
imagine.
and work with me every day.
Can't think of anything.
Here we go, guys.
Is their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. I cannot believe it's already Wednesday. Man, geez, it seems like I was just somewhere else. Welcome in the man of the hour, of the day, of the month, Bob Kravitz from The Athletic. It is his birthday. He just turned 40.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. 40 for the 23rd straight year.
23. All right. That is a great now.
Okay, do I need
Let's
to help
see.
you do the math?
No, I was trying to think. I'm looking at golf. See if you could. That's going to be a tough round.
Yeah. Oh, to shoot my age. Yeah. If I play 12 holes.
There you go. There you go.
That's smart. Yeah. Off the air, we were talking. Lil Rhodey having problems up in Rhode Island. 9-22 year after a couple of big boosters made things happen so they could make this deal happen. And now there's a mass exodus, a bunch of players leaving, all of his top scorers.
Well, when you're 9-22, you don't mind seeing guys walk out the door.
Most of the time, I would say that's true, but I'm going to guess that had he still been at Indiana, he was going to have guys leave. He was going to have Trace Jackson Davis leave. He would have had a mass exodus his last year here, and that would not have been the sentiment by Indiana fans.
No, absolutely not. So it was an interesting couple of days, huh? You got Purdue losing on Friday, IU losing on Saturday, IU women losing on Sunday. That's depressing.
2 of the 3 are shockers. I didn't expect Indiana to lose, but I'm shocked that the Indiana women lost. Shocked that Purdue lost in the first round.
Right.
Not shocked that I expected them to get beat. That was just a matter of time, potentially in the second round. But Indiana, and it's just the way they played again. And I hate to say this, but am I alone? Did it just look like they just were getting outworked? And
they were. There's no doubt about it, guys. No doubt about it.
But you got a whole game to fix this, and I'm like, going, the same thing was happening, and it never got fixed.
No. I mean, this team has been a little. I mean, like every team, been a little up and down all year. You never quite knew what you were getting, but we're talking about 90% of the teams in college basketball. You don't quite know what you're getting unless you're one of those elite teams, and Purdue is one of those elite teams. And then they got completely outworked by FDU.
Now, see, I do not think that Purdue was an elite team.
Well, I mean, the fact that they won the Big Ten by 3 games and won the Big Ten tournament pretty handily suggests to me that they are. Look, there are no great teams in NCAA basketball this year, but I think you certainly have to put Purdue in the top 5 to 10, don't you?
They were tough to beat just because of Zach Edey.
Yeah, so
and they were beatable. And as you said, when you predicted Indiana would go further than they would in the tournament, was because you knew they were going to get beat because they had freshman guards that were not playing well. Right. And you just can't win if you don't have guard play. Look at Indiana. Indiana lost because of that.
The other thing too, excuse me, is that center-dominated teams just don't go far in the NCAA tournament in this day and age. You got to go all the way back to Patrick Ewing in the mid-'80s with Georgetown to find a team that was center-centric, center-dominated, and won the whole thing. Just the game, the NBA game, the college game has changed. And it's all about guards and wings now.
And it brings up
that begs the question, what's next for Indiana? They're also going to lose. I was joking about Lil Rhodey losing half of his team, which is true, but Indiana has got people that they're going to be losing that we know of. 3 senior starters that are going to have to be refilled. They have 2 guys coming in already, so there's one opening. But I put out a tweet yesterday, Bob, that I set the over and under. Originally, I set it at 6, but I'm like, okay, I've got to give a betting deal, so I made it at 5.5. So I put the over and under at 5.5 of new faces on the calendar next year for Indiana basketball.
Yeah, and you got to think this. I would think, I don't have any inside information, so I'm just throwing it out there. But I would think guys like Jordan Geronimo, people like that, who
he's one I'm on the fence about that I don't know.
Well, I think where transfer.
Huh?
Don't you think he's going to transfer at some point?
I would think that's the one that puts you over. That's the guy that I don't either. But Tamar Bates is the one I wonder about.
Right. That's another guy who he can go somewhere and do well. Maybe not at this level, but I could see him being a big scorer. at a lower level. But
he's
if
not
those
ready.
guys do come back, they need a major upgrade in the way they're playing basketball.
They need a major upgrade in the roster. They have to. They're going to have to hopefully, and they don't know if they're going to get Xavier back. That matters too.
Oh,
if
absolutely.
he can't come back, then that's another new face. Now you're looking at half of your team.
Right. Yeah, no, I think Purdue is in much better shape moving forward. Even if Zach Edey doesn't come back, I still think they can be a dominant team. They got some young guys, Berg and Hyde, coming on. They're going to be really good with or without Edey. IU has a chance to really hit the skids here for at least a year's time.
They do, but they have to hit the portal, Dustin.
Big time.
I mean, they have to hit it right. They have to hit some home runs, and they have not done that thus far, but they're going to have to do that this season without question, or they're going to do exactly what Bob said, hit the skids, because they've got to replace big men. They need wings. They need athleticism desperately. Man, oh man, do they need athleticism. And the Miami game didn't show that, but it's not just athleticism. There's some mentality, man. And that there was just too many times that Indiana, in my opinion, I'll just use the same language I've been using, just swelled up too much. They felt too good about themselves. Win a game, puff their chest out, walk around like a banty rooster, and then Miami kick them in the nuggets. It happened more than once. They beat Purdue. What happens after that? They come home, get blown out of Assembly Hall, ran off the floor. At the NCAA tournament, that one just bothers me, because I'm like, how do you not show up under those lights?
Can I just say too that I feel like part of the problem, and we talked about this earlier in the week, is that Indiana got no development. No, those guys on the bench got worse as the season went along. Malik Renew,
and they got no production from the bench in their last game.
In that game, he was supposed to be Trace Jackson Davis's backup. He was not good. Some people thought CJ Gunn might come in and make an impact. Maybe not 20 minutes a game, but 8 to 10, 10 to 12. He didn't play a lot. Tamar Bates was inconsistent as anybody you can imagine. Like, I still go back to the depth part of it. And when you say they got to hit the transfer portal, I don't disagree. But the problem with that is you also got to make sure those guys mesh. And because they're coming from different teams, different styles, just because you get some athletic guys doesn't mean it's going to mesh well. So you got to make sure that you're not just getting talent. You've got to get guys that are going to fit what you're trying to do. And whether Mike Woodson needs to adjust what he's trying to do on the offensive side, which I still don't really know what that is. Maybe Bob can shed some light on what he's trying to accomplish on the offensive side, but they're going to have to make some major adjustments if they want to be. And look, they were, I think for most of January, they were the team we thought they were. They just were so inconsistent in December and then in late February. There's potential there, but they've got to make some changes, not just with their roster, but I think with how they're playing.
Well, I think that Woody wants to play positionless basketball. I mean, but he came here and understood that he had a dominant, power forward / center / back to the basket guy in Trace. And I think in his heart of hearts, he'd rather not be playing two bigs, side by side, him and Ray. So
it should be better off.
Yeah. So I think we'll start to see, as we move on, more players in more of Woody's vision moving forward. But, he took over a team where Trace was the best player and you had to work around him.
Is it in Indiana's best interest, Indiana basketball, best interest, and I don't mean this in a negative way towards him, that the Trace Jackson Davis era is over, that they can start kind of a new. No,
I don't think it's ever a good thing to lose a guy who averages 20 points and 12 rebounds and 4 blocks. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, some of that was because they didn't have some of the things they needed.
Well, I mean, the shame of it is that you've got yourself a first team All-American, and you've got a point guard who is going to be a first round draft pick, whether people believe it or not. He's going to go in the first round, and you could only get to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and that, is not a good reflection on where this program is at, and where and Woody. I mean, I think he's done. They've taken incremental steps forward. They got to the tournament last year, won the play-in game. They obviously got to the second round this year. So they're making incremental progress, but, they should have been better this year. I really feel that way. I thought
I agree with you. There's no reason that they actually did not win the Big Ten. Right. Now, looking back in hindsight, they gave it away. If you look at their losses, the loss at home to Northwestern, the loss to Penn State, just shouldn't have happened. And those games cost them the Big Ten championship. The Iowa game at Iowa, good Lord. That's 3 games right there.
But they're not an elite team. I mean, they're like I say, they're like 90% of the teams in this country that, you don't know what you're going to get from these kids day in and day out. And, look, Indiana for years has never been good at dealing with success. And why that is, I have no idea. I don't know if they all go to Kilroy's and, get lots of shots and are told how great they are. I don't know what the problem is, but they've never dealt well with success.
Well, and I feel like here's the thing to me. We're being hard on Indiana because of the expectation we have, right? But you look back,
being hard on Indiana. We're telling the truth. See, that's why people get misconceptions.
Time out. I understand that, but we're also. I mean, I'm not saying we're not being real. What I'm saying is it sounds like we're being hard on Indiana because they had an expectation to win the Big Ten, right? At the same time, you can look at what Bob said, and that they beat Purdue twice this year. When was the last time they won a game at Mackey? 10 years ago. They got into the NCAA tournament as a 4 seed. They won a game in the NCAA tournament. I said this earlier. I understand that that's not like finishing 3rd in the Big Ten and getting knocked out in the second round is not what people want. I get it. But when you look back, from where this program was stuck in the mud for 4 years under Archie Miller, it's made not incredible, but it's made progress. You can see the future of this program heading in the right direction, and you just didn't get that. So that's why I'm saying I don't think we're being hard on because they did have expectations. They had great players. They should have been better. But whole picture, it's in a much better state now than it was just 2 years ago.
Oh, no
of course.
But
if Bob Kravitz was the coach, they'd be in a better state than they were 2 years ago. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going in the right direction. It just means it's better than being in the sewer. That's all. It means someone picked it up and took it out of the sewer. That doesn't mean it's still growing, though, is it?
Yeah.
They did not.
Well, I mean, look. We've seen a lot of progress these last 2 years, I believe. But
absolutely. Without question.
They're gonna reach a point in this next season. We don't know. I mean, this is going to be Woody's first gigantic. Well, not first test. I mean, the first test was getting Trace to stay 2 years ago. But I mean, this is going to be. We're going to find out what he's made of. Can he go out?
This is Woody's witching hour.
Exactly. I would agree.
But did I just give you the title for your next article?
What's that?
Did I just give you the title for your next article?
What's that?
Woody's witching hour.
Woody's witching hour. Let me think about that one. Well, I'm going to write something for tomorrow on 3 days in March that just, I mean, can you imagine being a hardcore Purdue fan to get beat again by a double-digit seed? They got beat by a freaking commuter school. Didn't have their own band.
And they didn't
got a student as their SID.
And they didn't even win their conference championship.
They
backpedaled into it.
They lost to Queens College and Stonehill.
It's pretty rough. It'd be a rough day in West Lafayette. Rough days.
For all the Purdue fans that, and I'm not getting on them or whatever, but when they keep wanting to escape this narrative of they're not a national team, and then something like this happens. I don't think they should have been a number 1 seed, but anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But then something like this happens. This further exemplifies them as not a national program.
Well, look, they have won. They lead America in most NCAA tournament wins without winning the national title. I think it's 44 or something like that. So, I mean, they are a national power, whether you want to agree or not. They're a national power, but they're Peyton Manning. They're great in the regular season, and postseason, God knows what happens. Sorry, Peyton.
Well, and that happens to a lot of Big Ten teams. We were talking about that yesterday.
Yes.
We've seen that and over the years. And as Mike DeCourcy pointed out, though, a lot of times, Big Ten gets a lot of teams in, but if they're seated lower than the team they're playing, they're supposed to lose.
Right.
So
I think the Big Ten needs to look at itself stylistically in much the same way they did with football when the SEC was winning every year, and you needed more speed, for Big Ten schools. I think you need more athleticism, more elite guard play in the Big Ten. And I think the way the game is officiated, where it's like no autopsy, no foul. I heard a writer the other day, and I'm sure this is true, that in recruiting, coaches will send video of Big Ten brutality to their kids to show them, hey, you don't want to go to the Big Ten and get the crap kicked out of you for 40 minutes a night.
That's that makes a lot of sense.
The Indiana women losing, that was a gut punch. I really, truly thought that they were going to go to the Final Four. I thought they had a legitimate chance.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they had a legitimate chance to play for a national championship.
Yeah,
I really did. Something happened to that team. Someone told me that they thought it was at the Iowa loss at Iowa. And I don't know if it was something, that halftime, that loss when they had a 23-point lead over Ohio State and lost in the Big Ten tournament. This is a team that lost 3 out of their last 4, that only lost 4 games all year.
Right.
And I don't, just something seemed to have happened. I don't know if the same thing happened to them at the end that happened to the men, but the difference was the women were trying. They were working their butts off. It just didn't happen. But, man, what a gut punch for that program.
Yeah, I feel bad for Terry and for Mackenzie and certainly Grace Berger, who's done at IU. Look, losing Mackenzie Holmes for a little while with the injury probably had a little something to do with their struggles down the road. She didn't play well in the first half of the Miami game, but give Miami credit. They played really well. The big girl, I forgot her name.
She was awesome.
She was really good, and they took everything to the basket. They were getting calls, and I had a lot of people like, hey, the game-winning shot was a walk. Well, yeah, they missed a lot of calls both ways all game long. So, I kind of don't want to hear it. But look, Miami deserved it, and it's a shame because the good thing about it is for women's college basketball. I remember the day when we would talk to Gino Oriama, and he would be asked the question, is Connecticut's dominance bad for women's basketball? And he always took great umbrage at that for understandable reasons. But now you've got 2 number 1 seeds who are out of the way in the women's game. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was chalk, man. You never saw that happen.
Oh, well, yeah, this is only the second time, I think, in 16 years. Miami has to give a big round of applause to John Ruiz.
Yeah, their NIL guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got the twins.
Got Nigel Pack.
Wong.
Oh, man, he killed Indiana.
It's the way of the world, man. Hey, people forget Trace Jackson Davis made almost $1 million last year. Zach Edey made, I think it was 811, something like that. I mean, it's a whole new world.
How much did he make?
Everybody's paying the freight.
How much did Zach make?
Zach made, I think it was 890 or 900.
Hey, oh, did he really?
Or maybe it's the other way around. No. Trace made close to 900, and Zach was like at 811.
I didn't realize Zach made that much. I didn't think the Purdue guys had that much power. Cool. Well, what's up next for you, brother?
Not much. I'm going to write something about 3 days in March that kind of ruined our spring, our basketball spring here in Indiana. And, we got the NFL draft coming up. I need to chime in on Lamar Jackson and some other issues, and we'll just get after it.
Well, look forward to talking to you next week. Appreciate you. Make sure you give Bob a follow. If you're not doing yourself a favor. And subscribe to The Athletic for complete coverage of the Colts and Pacers and Hoosiers and Boilers and all that goes with it. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. See you, Dustin.
We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hoosier Hank's Pizza Mac, located right on College, the former Swing In Pizza. Then I never thought that macaroni and cheese would be a meal, but it sure is. And they've got 7 different delicious options to choose from. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal. Oh, do. I did not expect to be home this weekend.
What are you going to do with yourself?
Well, I was actually looking forward to, I was going to see my dad. I was going to visit him, get a visit with my dad out of this because the women play in South Carolina. And there was no way that was not going to happen. Well, it's not going to happen. What did you switch what you're using as far as a laptop?
No, but I think my laptop is on the fritz, to be quite honest. I think
because your camera is just your camera's horrific.
Yeah. I noticed that when I was going through the show yesterday.
You can buy an external camera for like $10 and plug in and use that instead. And it'll hook to and it just sits on top.
Yeah. Well, I need to get I'm going to have to get a new laptop first, like probably in the next month or so when I get back. Because it's been over 2 years, I think. And that's about the lifespan of a laptop anymore, of an HP. Anyway.
Yeah, I went longer than that, but now the one I have is 2 years old now.
Well, I use this.
See, I've got 2. I've got one that's probably 6 years old, or no, it's probably 5 years old. No, it's 6 years old at least, maybe. And then now I've got one that's 2 years old.
Yeah, this one I use for literally everything. So.
Now, are you a laptop person or an Apple person?
Laptop. I don't care for Mac.
I don't care for Mac.
Well, the thing is I can get this, and it works. Other than when it gets old, it works fantastic, and I can get 3 of them in 8 years as opposed to getting 1 and still paying more that lasts 5 years. Because Apple lasts a little bit longer.
Listening.
So Apple is so expensive, and the lifespan of those are usually 5 years, whereas this is 2.5 to 3 years, and it's a fifth of the cost. So why wouldn't I just?
Why wouldn't I?
And it does everything I need. I use it for the show and for work. I don't play games or.
Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, March 22nd. Brought to you by our good friends from RE/MAX Realty, Cheryl Sizemore. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. She will get you taken care of. Jamie says today is National Goof Off Day.
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that every day here?
It is. We abide by that 5 days a week.
I agree. And Howie says, and the camera makes your beard look filled in.
There we go. Perfect. Not going to swap anything now.
Maybe you'll have to leave that alone.
I like it.
Is it good that the TJD era is over? I asked that to Bob, and I don't mean that in a negative way towards Trace Jackson Davis. I just mean it will now force or allow, however you want to look at it, Woody to do things differently.
Yeah.
He's got a guy to be in the middle next year with Malik Renew, but he's a different type of player. I'm not saying he could be better, but I think he could be more versatile. He can shoot from outside if he has to.
Right.
And I'm not saying he's a great shooter.
Well,
and the double big thing, it didn't work for Indiana. At times they were just too slow.
Yeah.
Man, they got destroyed by O'Meara, Chad O'Meara, who was smaller than both of them.
What I would like to know is, it's an interesting question because I get the point that you're making where Indiana is going to have to switch up styles because they don't have Trace Jackson Davis anymore. At the same time, when you have a guy who's been as consistent as he has in terms of getting points, drawing fouls, getting rebounds, I know he hasn't developed a jump shot, but if you surrounded him with 4 athletic guys or 3 really athletic guys, then I think we're having a different conversation. Then I think you can say you'd rather have Trace Jackson Davis back. Like I think to this point. So I don't think it's Trace Jackson Davis.
Agree.
Yeah.
If they let's say you had Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hutchifino, healthy, but you were not playing Race Thompson. You had an athletic wing that could shoot also. That could also rebound, and then you had a 3 that could score consistently. They don't have to score 28 points a game, but they have to be able to score 28 points in a game in a given time. They have to be able to shoot the 3-point ball, but the system has to be one that encourages and looks for that. That's something. That's the biggest change. Whatever system it's employed, Indiana must employ a system that encourages and looks for the 3-point shot. You are going to get beat in college basketball today if you are not shooting the 3. Indiana, someone pointed out, their percentage has been horrible in the last several years. Well, it skyrocketed, but it skyrocketed because their attempts have plummeted. So it's not really, you haven't solved the problem.
Right.
And that's going to have to come through the portal. They're going to have to hit home runs in the portal. Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton cannot be relied upon because they're freshmen to do that. CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks, how can he make that big of a stride in the offseason? I don't know, but we know he's going to be a player. Got some minutes, when he was in, he was impactful.
Yeah, well, I think that this is going to be a huge offseason for those younger guys, because you're going to have to hit some home, like you said, you're going to have to get some really good players out of the transfer portal. You got to make sure that they're going to fit into what you're doing, but you've also got to develop those guys that you've already got in your program, assuming they don't hit the transfer portal, because I think there's a lot of potential there. I think they can be great players too, and I think that they do bring athleticism and shooting, but obviously they weren't ready for the big stage this year. I mean, there's a reason they were on the bench for a majority of the year, and so that's fine. I mean, some guys just don't have the skills or the mentality to come in and play right away. There's no problem with that. But you got to have an off season where you've got to develop talent. Those guys have got to get a lot better because they're going to be dependent upon. If you're going to see 5 to 6 new faces on Indiana's roster, you've got to hope that those guys can take the next step and be more or be better contributors next season. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. Indiana, there's no question, if you're going to win in March, you've got to be more athletic. You've got to have better shooters. Because part of the thing, too, is you can be a good shooting team. This is what happens to Iowa almost every year. Iowa they can be a lights-out shooting team, but if they're missing shots, they're not going to get to the basket. They're going to take jump shots, and that's why they usually are an early exit. Well, they always are an early exit because Fran's never been to the Sweet 16. But that's typically why they're a early exit, because sometimes your jump shooting doesn't travel, and they don't have guys that can get to the basket and consistently and either get easy buckets, create easy buckets, or get to the foul line. That's just not part of their game. So you mix that up with defense. So Indiana's got to have guys that we talk about shooting a lot, but you've got to have that athleticism to get to the basket, because in the NCAA tournament, if you're not shooting, it's not like you move on. It's not like they're going to wait on you. You gotta,
and you also have to be peaking. You have to be trending in an upward trajectory. And while Indiana, they just never really got a run that was up. They were like a roller coaster. Man, they were up and down, and they could just never get a run. Every time they'd get a run, it was like boom, right back down. I think they won 5 games straight at one point in the middle of the season after the 3-game losing streak. But after
they won 8 of 9 or 9 of 10. So they were like, that's in the Big Ten. That's pretty good. Like, it's tough to win that many games.
They just didn't have the killer instinct to me at this NCAA. They weren't ready to win. And I don't understand that, but that has to come with a new team. I don't know, the fresh mindset. But there's definitely going to be a reset. Someone asked yesterday, is this a rebuild or a reload? It's a rebuild, because you're going to have to rebuild the team and rebuild this offense. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more coming up, including Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. The state championships are coming up this weekend. Who's going to do what? Brought to you by Barbara Pop Real Estate. For those of you down in the Louisville, southern Indiana area, Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Scott counties, all down through there, they have served those communities for over 3 decades. No one can get you into the home you want quicker or with less hassle than Barbara Pop. Reach out to her, Barbara at barbarapop.com, or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore.
Right.
Saw the Cavendish twins. They were.
They hit some big shots in that game.
Well, one did.
Yeah, one did.
One's better than the other.
I think the other one, I don't know that the other one scored, to be quite honest with you.
One comes off of the bench.
Yeah. You see Reggie Wayne was at the game?
In Assembly Hall?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Yeah, he was. I think he was behind the Miami bench, and he was going nuts. He said at the end, he showed all the video of them winning and everything. He said, "I'm going to need security."
Did he have
to get out of here.
Does his daughter play?
No, but I think he's still on the Colts staff, and he went to Miami.
They're making so much money.
No, I'm sure. I feel we need some guys like we had under. Am I wrong? Guys like Victor Oladipo, Jordan Holes, OG Anunoby. Yeah, I think that's fair.
You could be getting a couple of those guys and someone like Ja'Kai Newton potentially. Maybe not the exact same kind of player, but
yeah, you could.
But obviously, freshmen take a little while to develop.
Kyle, he's not up next, is he?
He is up next.
Okay.
He just sometimes shows up a couple minutes late. We still got a minute until we get started.
I feel like we do this
at 9:50.
Is it just me? I feel like we do this every year, though. I feel like within Indiana, we talk about, this kid's going to be, he's.
It's overthinking. Or not? It's not really overthinking. It's overhyping.
Yes, that's what I think happens, and I don't think they're bad players. I just think that I think there's way too much just because they agreed to. They look at the star rating, and because they signed at IU, there's a lot of. This guy's going to be the next so and so.
I just don't see. Me and Jim talked about this after the show yesterday. Why in the non-conference last year, why guys like CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks didn't get more minutes, even like whenever they were destroying teams.
That's a good question. I would ask Mike Woodson.
Right,
well, again,
BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. It's March 22nd, brought to you by our good friends down at Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. For those of you down in and around the world, if you're traveling through, stop by. Great Cajun fare. Great place to take the family for dinner, stop in for lunch, or meet the guys to watch a game. Welcoming in Kyle Neddenriep here shortly, expecting. But as I look in, there are a couple things going on in the high school ranks. So I'll ask Kyle about it as he joins us here in a second. As he gets ready, and I'm trying to get myself up to date on it. Kyle, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Looking at a couple things. I know we've got the tournament this weekend, but before I get to that, there's an expected vote on the class system, but I don't understand what exactly are the changes, or what would the changes be?
Yeah, so they're changing the enrollment, how you divide the classes. Basically, right now they go by, splitting them evenly, roughly. So you have roughly this, or pretty much the same amount in every class. If you do it this way, now you would have a set enrollment. So everybody over 1,400, according to this proposal, would be in 4A. So you have, I think at this point right now, you would have like 68 schools that are above 1,400. And this is done partly, because the gap between the largest 4A in basketball and other sports are becoming wider. Basically, the suburban schools are kind of blowing up, and some of the schools that are more communities that are, an example might be like New Pal, or, schools that are farther out too, that don't really grow. The gap between those schools and the biggest suburban schools and township schools is becoming increasingly wide. So that's the reason they did this. Now you could say 1,400 is maybe not a high enough number. Maybe you need to go to 2,000 to really, to make a bigger difference. But right, as of what it is now, you're basically going from now it's about 1,000 on up. So you are getting some of those schools into 3A, the way you do this. But, and another reason is a lot of the new schools that have come in are smaller private or charter schools. So you're bumping up schools that are traditionally like a Speedway. They don't really grow year over year, but they're getting bumped up from 2A to 3A because smaller schools coming in are below them, and just bumping them up because you split the classes evenly. If you go by set enrollment numbers from, 600 to 1,400, or whatever the case may be, you're going to be in that range no matter what. You're not going to get bumped up unless unless a success factor or something changes you. So, and it makes all the sports equal too. All the sports are going to be in the same class. You're going to probably be in the same sectional with the same teams in every class, in every sport, that is. So it does make some sense to me that you would do it this way. There was talk about a fifth class, that was the original proposal, and doing these enrollment cap, and fixed enrollment numbers. I don't think the appetite was there for five classes, at least enough of an appetite, which I sort of agree with. I think that waters it down even more and creates even more issues, in my opinion, like, traveling for sectionals, things like that. And even doing this will create a little bit more travel in 4A because you have less schools. You go from about 100 something, a little over 100 or roughly 100 to 68. So by doing that, you're creating more travel in the sectional, but also you're not, you'll have less games too. You won't have a lot of these sectional in basketball will be 4-team sectionals. So 16 times 4 is what? I'm bad at math, 64. So you'd only have a couple of week games if you do it that way in the sectional. So probably going down a rabbit hole here, but that's kind of the basis of why they're doing it, and what they're planning on doing. I think it probably will pass. I think this is probably the way it's going to be set up in the future.
So it's kind of, for people who wanted single class basketball, there will be no complaints from them, I would imagine. But I guess the complaints would come from maybe schools at the bottom of 4A because that's probably the biggest stretch of schools. Other than that, and is football really the only sport that's going to basically impact?
No, football is kind of its own monster. It's already, football is sort of already doing this, because
but they have 6 classes, don't they?
Yeah, they have 6 classes. So you've already kind of, 6A and 5A are already, in football, that's already its own different species, I would say. So football's
but
not
that
really
becomes 4A though.
Yeah, well, this is only for these sports. These are the only sports will be, the 4-class sports are, basketball, soccer, volleyball, baseball, softball.
Oh, okay. I missed that. My bad. I missed that.
Yeah.
I thought this was for everything.
Yeah, football is its own different thing completely. But yeah, this will be for the 4 classes. And, and you're right. I mean, your point about the smaller 4A still being the ones who complain is valid, because you're always going to have that, no matter if you have 1401 students and you have to play
Carmel, they have 5,000.
Yeah. So you're always going to have that. I mean, and that's sort of like Bedford North Lawrence is right there on the, and they're the girls' state champions in 4A, but they are a very small 4A, and they would have to play, and they obviously did really well, so it doesn't really bother them. But some of those other ones, and also what would this do? You look at the schools that go to 3A now. Cathedral, which is a powerhouse, would be 3A. So I don't think those 3A schools would like that whole lot. You also have, I think I was looking at that. There's some other really good. Mount Vernon would be 3A, although I think they're probably growing enough where they would eventually get to 4A and 1,400 students. And, Cathedral would probably bump up anyway via the success factor eventually. But some of those other, Roncalli would be 3A. They're a school that's bounced back and forth in basketball. And there's another one in there. I forget, it's in the story, but I forget who it is. But, it's interesting because of that. It creates, anytime you make changes, it kind of creates other issues for someone else. But that's like anything, and I do think this is a good overall. When I look at this, I think it's a good move. I think it makes sense to do it, this way. I would argue you should bump that number higher, but to like 2,000 students, because those are the schools that are, probably need to be playing each other. But then you would have this huge number of 3A schools, or you'd be splitting the pot between the 1A, 2A, and 3A by even more schools. So you just have that many more schools. But I would argue those larger class, those biggest schools are more, they need to be playing against each other probably more than the schools that are in the 1,000 to 2,000 range, but I was talking to Paul Neidig, the commissioner, last night, and one of his points is like, we only look at this at the lens a lot of times of boys basketball, which I get it. That's what drives a lot of the money and finances for these schools, along with football. So I do get that, but you also look at like girls basketball, volleyball. Yorktown is a small school that is dominated in volleyball. So we only look at it from boys basketball, and these bigger schools have won most of the championships, but volleyball, softball, girls basketball, that hasn't necessarily been the case. A lot of the smaller schools have done well, in 4A. So I think when you take a step back, and look at it, I think that's a valid point as well. But I think, if you do it this way, you could later, you could say, hey, we have more schools that are now over 1,400. We can adjust this number to 1,600 or 1,700. I think that leaves some leeway in the future to maybe adjust that bottom line number when more schools, get to that range. And I think that'll happen. You're going to have more schools that are 3,000 and above in the suburban schools. That's just the way it's been headed the last 10 years. So that's changed a lot in Indianapolis. And I think will continue to be the case even when you look farther out in the suburban schools.
Speaking of Cathedral, Danny O'Neill, quarterback, signed to steal a line from yours. He's going primetime, commits to Colorado and Deion Sanders.
Yeah, I like that fit for him. I don't know what, he got a connection there with the offensive coordinator who was a head coach at Kent State and signed on to be the offensive coordinator for Deion Sanders there. And, apparently that was Danny had made 2 trips out there to Colorado. The latest was just this past weekend, and got things locked up with his commitment there. And, apparently that was a big reason why that he committed. He had a good connection with that coach who has been a head coach. And, I think really, I like this fit. Danny's a guy that, he's a little bit smaller quarterback. which is why some of the biggest schools didn't offer him, in my opinion, because he has all the other intangibles and the arm strength, and he's fairly elusive too as a runner. So he wants to go somewhere he can play right away, get a chance, at least have an opportunity to play right away. And I think that Colorado sounds like they're going to at least tell him for now you're going to have that opportunity. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm curious to. Colorado is one of the more interesting teams. They were probably the least interesting team for many years in the country, or one of them. Now they're the most interesting team, or one of them. So I'm fascinated to see how all that works. I and for Danny, I really like, it's cool that he is going there. In my opinion, I think it's it's outside the box. He was looking at Kentucky and Illinois pretty hard, but good for him. And who knows? I've given up trying to project quarterbacks from high school to college. I'm wrong all the time. So who knows? But there's only so many opportunities those guys get. I mean, you have to, that clock starts ticking. And if you're behind somebody, or, you're not getting an opportunity, man, you can only play one for the most part. So it's hard to get your footing sometimes as a college quarterback.
And Kyle, we got some good state championship matchups here this weekend. Is Kokomo Ben Davis that 4A game? Is that the main the entree, I guess, or what are the other matchups like? What are you looking for in some of these other matchups? Because it seems like that the Kokomo Ben Davis game is the one that's going to get everybody's attention on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I really love that matchup, the Kokomo Ben Davis game. I mean, that's going to be just a phenomenal game, and I think it's going to be sold out. There's there's significant. So there's something going on behind a little bit behind the scenes. Kokomo apparently. I was talking to the commissioner last night, and Kokomo somehow figured out, and not saying all of Kokomo, but someone figured out how to get tickets from the other three. The ticket link to the other three schools. They bought a whole bunch of tickets, and they're going to have to figure out because you can't say, and it's only for the night session, but you have other three teams that are going to need those tickets, so they have to figure out something to give those tickets back, and then so that's going to be sort of it's sort of interesting to see how that goes, because you can't just not have Guerin Catholic and Northwood be able to sit in those sections down below and it be filled with Kokomo people. So, so that's something going on sort of behind the scenes. But yeah, you got Flory Badunga against that undefeated Ben Davis team, and that's just going to be phenomenal theater, and I think it's going to be a fantastic game. And I've covered Ben Davis probably half their games this year or close to it, and they have this ability to just turn a switch on with their defensive pressure. It's not really offense, but they all sort of vibe with each other so well, and they run this diamond press a lot of times. They'll start the third quarter with it. They don't even run it a lot. They do press, but they don't really run that diamond until the third quarter. And when they turn that on, it's like, all right, how are you gonna contend with this? And that's to me, that's even no matter what the halftime score is Saturday night, that press is coming, and Kokomo, we'll see if they can handle it, but if they do, then Flory's at the other end of that thing, dunking the lights out of that place. So it'll be phenomenal. There's going to be so many people there. College coaches will be there to see Flory. It'll be a fantastic event. And, I mean, one of the most anticipated games probably in this state in a long time. I mean, it's going to be a great one, I think. Who knows how the game goes, but at least the lead up to it's going to be phenomenal.
Right.
Now, he's just a junior, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so he's got another year because, man, Indiana could sure use him next year.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah, they're significant.
What's up next? You got the state finals this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. I wrote today about the kind of the history Ben Davis is chasing with the other teams that have gone undefeated throughout the history of the state. That was fun to research, and I knew all those teams, but just to go back and look, it's only happened 13 times, so it's in the over 100 years of the sport, it's not happened a lot. So Warren Central was the last team to do it in 18 with that that team that won so many close games. They were 32-0. And before that, it was 09 with Bloomington South. And then, you go back to 03 Pike and, the Odin teams of 06, Odin Conley teams. And then a lot of them were before class basketball. Attucks was the first one.
Did Jay Edwards and Lyndon Jones, did they go undefeated those 3 years?
Yeah, they went their first of their 3 in 85 was undefeated. They were sophomores on that team, and they went undefeated. And I think that had been the first one in like 14 years. So you had some runs of, you had a few in a row and then a gap, and then a few 69, 70, and 71 were all undefeated teams, which is sort of interesting. Indianapolis, Washington, East Chicago, Roosevelt, and East Chicago, Washington all went all went undefeated those 3 years. But yeah, there's been some gaps, and then not as many as I would have thought in the class basketball era either. There hasn't been a ton of teams that have done it.
All right, I appreciate you, Kyle Neddenriep, and I think we'll probably see you this weekend.
Sounds good. I don't know why my video is not working, but oh well.
Well, we'll see you. We'll see you on Saturday.
All right, sounds good.
Appreciate you. Kyle Neddenriep from Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up with the man Rick Bozich right after this, brought to you by Metalworks Brewing Company, located right off the square in Bloomington on 6th Street, or served in all of the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Bring your thirst and see what Dr. Hops has got hopping. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home...
Man, I'm upset with Kyle.
Why?
Didn't mention the our high school team went undefeated in 02-03, won the state title.
Nobody. Who was that?
Lewis Cass.
That's why I didn't mention them. Aren't they a Class A school? Nobody cares about Class A schools.
2A. Still went undefeated. Beat Logan Sport.
Oh, man. Come on. Who were you playing?
I didn't say we played a lot
schools. You played elementary schools.
I didn't say we played a lot of great schools. I'm just saying we did it. That's all that matters.
That's what Leary would just berate us about. Floyd Central. Oh, who are you all playing? Mitchell, who are you playing? Salem?
Is Ben Davis undefeated?
Yeah.
Is Kokomo?
24-4.
I don't think Kokomo is, are they?
No, they're 24-4.
Which amazes me how the hell Kokomo got beat 4 times with Flory Badunga.
But now the state finals is just 1 game, right? It's not 2 anymore.
Right.
Yes.
It's so disgusting.
Yeah, now they're changing it again.
How?
They're trying to, no, yeah, it is for basketball. Still 4 classes, but now it's going to be based strictly upon enrollment, where before they tried to get an even enrollment. Now it's 4A would be anybody over 1,400 students, which means like Floyd Central is in the same. Well, Floyd Central's bigger than that, but they're in the same class with Carmel.
I think they should go to 216 classes then, so nobody finishes worse than runner-up.
There you go, and everybody gets a trophy.
We can all feel good about each other.
The best thing I ever saw in my life was this Little League coach. I think it was Little League. He said, I'm going to have 9 assistant coaches this year. He said, and each assistant coach is responsible for a position, and each assistant coach happens to have a son. And so he put them in charge of every position. How's Rick doing?
Oh, I felt better yesterday. Today it's going to hit me from the driving. But,
Yeah, it was a long trip, man.
You got back to Bloomington in time to watch the
halftime
Heartbreak Hotel?
Yep. Got to see it twice. That was just
new brews and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, March 22nd. Myself and Dustin Schutte, as always, joined by Rick Bozich, Hall of Famer. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. As you know, I did the drive to Albany and back last Wednesday morning. I was in the car and talked to you guys. And Monday, the game was Sunday night late. Monday morning, we made the drive back, got home at about 9:45 and was able to watch the fourth quarter of the IU women's basketball game, and we can move on from there.
Yeah. How disappointing. You've been around the IU programs for a long, long time. I mean, that's as disappointing a basketball loss since someone pointed out maybe the 90s with the men, with those teams that probably should have won a national championship easily and didn't. But man, golly, that was just, I mean, Indiana, the men losing, they didn't give the effort. So it wasn't it sucked, but you didn't feel as bad. This, they were like, damn, it just wasn't working for some reason. It was weird.
Yeah. I've heard people compare it to 93 when they lost with Cheney, or 92 when they lost to Duke in the Final Four when Alan Anderson hurt that. I don't remember which year he was hurt, but one of those years he was hurt and whatever.
It was 94. 92 was when Ted Valentine fouled out most of the starting lineup.
I think it was 93 with Henderson, because Henderson was still there in 94, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I compare it to the 75.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to go there, man, because I wasn't around and I didn't want to do that. But God,
when I saw the emotion in the locker room, that's what I compared it to. I was there in 75 in Dayton, and I saw the emotion in the locker room, and that team had already beaten Kentucky by 16 or 24 points in the regular season, and was undefeated, #1 the whole year. And then Scott May broke his arm and came back and tried to play, and it was a colossal, letdown. And that's what this was. Although this team had lost a couple games late, they were playing at home in front of a packed Assembly Hall, and as you said, they were playing uphill the whole game and never could quite get over the hump. And it's tough, and it's what was tough. I have suggested, in terms of back-to-back days, it's the toughest back-to-back days in IU basketball history, because obviously the women's team has just become really nationally relevant in the last 4 or 5 years. But for the men and women both to lose to Miami when they were both higher seeds, and both programs having iconic players in Trace Jackson Davis and Grace Berger, where it was their final game, for the Indiana fan base, it's going to take a while to process that and get over it.
Yeah, they've never lost. The two programs have never lost two as high profiles at the same time ever.
Right.
With the women, because the women really don't have not had it. And Grace Berger is, as you put it, going to be on the Mount Rushmore. She is already on the Mount Rushmore of Indiana women's basketball, as she should be. And Trace Jackson Davis, I don't know about that, but he's going to be way up there. The Indiana women, they're set. I'm not going to say they're set for next year, but they're in great shape for next year. Again, of course, they lose a leader, a great player that they're going to have to replace, but they have great parts in place. The men's team, boy, that's a different discussion. We don't know what's going to be in place. I sent out a tweet yesterday. I put the over and under for new faces on the calendar at 5.5. I think it's going to be at least 6, depending now, and that does not include Xavier.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be 6 new faces. Personally, I'm taking the over at 5.5.
And that counts Cups and Newton as among the 5.5.
Yeah, and coming in, yes.
So you're saying 4 guys either out of the portal or decommitments from somewhere else? Could be.
Well, I mean, they're losing 3 seniors,
right?
So,
well, the first thing I want to say is I want to give props to Trace Jackson Davis. I know people, hoped he would go out in a better way. But I think you have to step back and keep it in perspective of, he committed to Indiana at a time when a lot of kids in the state might not have. He could have easily gone to Michigan State, which was the safer path where he could be more assured of NCAA tournament success, and he didn't. And committed to Archie Miller, who afterwards a lot of guys weren't as interested in doing. And then when Archie left, he could have left and gone somewhere else possibly and had more success, or gone to the NBA, and he didn't. And then he came back for a fourth year. And I don't think in my lifetime, I know we're not going to ever see a guy with his ability stay around for 4 years. It's not going to happen. They're going to go pro or go in the NIL and transfer portal and get more money. And never embarrassed the program. In any media setting I ever saw him, incredibly well-spoken, thoughtful, polite, and he is a Hoosier. He was from Indianapolis, and he got the whole IU basketball experience, and he kind of sold it. And even you were there Sunday night, the way he kind of patted Mike Woodson on the back as he left the stage and said, the program's in good shape in the hands of this guy. So, for all the disappointment, I think it's important to give him credit for what he achieved, because he achieved a lot. As for next year, it's going to be fascinating because there's a lot of decisions to make, or who you're going to get. The competition in the portal for the best guys is ferocious. I think it's even more ferocious than it is for high school recruits. High school guys, it's usually 5 or 6 schools. In these portal guys, I'm seeing they're listing 20 schools that are reaching out to them. And,
well, because with the portal guys, you already know what you're getting. With the prospects, you think you know what you're getting. These guys are like, this guy's a shooter. It's like going, hey, everybody's running down aisle 14 at Kmart and trying to get to the top of the shelf there.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a tough thing. And Woodson's going to have to make a decision on how is he going to play moving forward. Let's be honest. Indiana roster construction was not optimal this year. Trace and Race are both post players. That was a great philosophy maybe in the 60s or 70s, maybe even to the 80s, but that's not the way college basketball is played anymore. And as you saw against Miami, the better team is the team that has 3 or 4 guys who can really drive the ball, shoot the ball. They really are triple threat type players. And Indiana doesn't have enough of them, and they need to get them. And, I'm going to be interested to see who they get to fill the spots and what kind of players they are. And they need to – there needs to be some tweaks made to the way they play offense, because pick and roll and mid-range jumpers by the point guard and getting the ball inside, dumping the ball inside all the time isn't going to work on a consistent basis.
I think there's some truth to this. Woodson made the most of what he had to work with. This is not how Woodson wants to play from Jared. He a lot of these guys are leftovers from Archie Miller, who we talked about earlier on the show. Things are not going well for Lil Rhodey. He's having a mass exodus of players after his 9-22 season up there. But who all leaves is going to be interesting to me. I don't think Logan Duncombe returns. I don't think that Tamar Bates returns. And
you don't? Why do you think that?
I was in the locker room afterwards, it was very, very, very emotional for those guys. Not as emotional for the women. He was showing no emotion. He was the only one, not even close to crying. Which I'm not saying you have to cry, and people handle things differently. I'm not saying you have to cry, and that doesn't. But it stood out to me that he was the only one that was. What's weird is he I can't compare him to me, but he just had a baby, and the reason I point that out is I remember after having my daughter, it was a hard delivery, and I was very, very calm during the delivery until it was actually cleared. Her heart wasn't started, and they got her heart started and all this stuff. And then once everything was good,
I just burst out into this unbelievable. I bawled like a baby. But ever since then, I think I've become more emotional. And so I'm like thinking, he just had a baby too. So, but there was just no emotion there. And it was just weird to me. It just how it appeared. Jalen Ojafino, he disappeared into the bathroom and was never to be seen again. But everyone else, had tears. Even the managers were crying.
Yeah, it was fascinating when I walked out after all the locker room stuff. Was that Dalton Godby and I were out on the court, and I saw like one of the staff assistants and stuff. I mean, they were sitting out on the bench, very emotional. I mean, I don't know why, but it seemed like more emotional than normal. So yeah, there was a lot of guys that showed a lot of emotion. I mean, Bates could leave. That's understandable. I mean, not to be critical of the kid, but he got plenty of opportunities and didn't come through. I mean, he was 0 for 13 in Albany. He got 13 shots.
IU's bench did not. There was no. IU did not have a bench, and the big talk about them being so deep, and they got zip from their bench in Albany.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he have the third or fourth most field attempts in that game? And
he put them up, man.
He went scoreless in 6 of the last 11 games he played in. So it wasn't just a 1 or 2 game thing. It was a consistent problem. So he needs to change and improve his game. He's a guy who's so dependent on just shooting jump shots. There's more to the game, man. You got to set your it's with passes. His defense did get better. You got to be able to pass the ball. You got to be able to attack the lane and score inside. Get to the line if your shot's not going in. I would say the only guys I'm totally sure will be back would be Galloway. I would think Renew would be back. I would think Banks would be back. I would think Gunn would be back. Leal probably. But after that, everybody else, I don't know. So with only 2 signees, I mean they are going to need to get 4 or 5 guys out of the portal, and that's hard. But
they need that. They need that. They need that to change. They need that to upgrade this offense because they need to get athletic. The Miami game exposed them. I don't know if it exposed complete athleticism because some of it's heart. Effort is part of that, but having Race and Trace out there, an athletic team is just going to kick your behind every time. You can't keep up with them. And Norch had Omer. My God, it's like they couldn't even find him, much less block him out. I mean, he was just. I don't understand how one guy can do that to a team, but he just destroyed Indiana on the boards. He's like 6'7".
Well, he had 17. He had 17 boards, I think. I mean, Miami had 19 offensive rebounds, and Indiana had 20 defensive rebounds. That's a bad ratio. And what was very apparent was that, they were quicker leapers and they were quicker second leapers. And there was a lot of times, I mean, let's be honest, Kopp and Race Thompson just aren't super athletic guys, and they don't have a tremendous amount of bounce, and they couldn't handle those dudes. I mean, they really couldn't. And they were getting all the long rebounds too. I was sitting next to Dane O'Neill there, and I know it's 13-3 early, but even before then, I said these guys, this is going to be a tough game for Indiana to win because they're not going to be able to guard these guys. They spread the floor, and how many times did Miami wait to the last? They look for a really good shot. They wait to the last 6 or 7 seconds in the shot clock, and then they got the ball to Wong or somebody else and just said, beat your guy off the dribble and score. And they did, and they scored in the last second of the shot clock. It happened at least 2 and maybe 3 times. And Miller, I think that was his name, number 11. He abused Indiana in the second half, attacking the rim. I mean, they had better players.
Isaiah Wong just destroyed Indiana from the outside. And then, of course, I mentioned Norchad Omer just destroying him with rebounding. I mean, they just had 2 guys basically that killed Indiana. But John Ruiz certainly put a hurting on Indiana this weekend. That's for certain.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
I mean, he single-handedly beat Indiana's men's and women's programs this weekend.
Yeah, you're talking about his NIL recruitment of Nigel Pack and the Cavender twins. I mean, that's the way the game is right now. So, you can complain about it or you can respond to it and do something about it. And I think point B is probably the way you need to go, because there are going to be more John Ruizes going forward, because other schools are going to say, hey, we can be Florida Atlantic. We can be, Princeton's not going to do it, but San Diego State, we can be Creighton, we can be whoever else is out there. There's a few other ones I'm not thinking of right now, but Kansas State or whatever, that can be done.
Yeah, Indiana finished that game against Miami 0 for their last 9.
Did they? Yeah, the last 5 minutes was just a blur, and Miami, it seemed to take special joy in it all, because even after Jackson Davis went out of the game, they were throwing the run-out long passes and dunking the ball. So they never really called off. I mean, they didn't they? They didn't call off the Dogs at all.
No, not only that, it's kind of reminiscent of last night at the women's game. The coach apologized a little bit for them being a little exuberant as well. I think they went to the center of the IU court and was jumping on the logo, the women. Miami is a different culture.
Yes, it is.
So
the thing that I don't understand is the economics of it all. I mean, Nigel Pack is a fine player. He's maybe their third or fourth leading scorer this year. I'm not sure what the NIL people, how they're getting $400,000 worth of value from what Nigel Pack does for Miami.
I want to know is what's Norchad Omier and Isaiah Wong getting is what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wong, I remember back last spring when Pack got his deal, Wong threatened to leave.
That's right. He was the one.
Yeah.
So,
well, he was rightfully so. He's a much better player. And much more deserving.
I saw you've got some Floyd Central ties. I saw a note last night reading some different things that there's a kid named Jake Heidbrenner who played at Floyd Central for several years, and
on Air Force.
Air Force, yeah.
I sent out a
portal. He's in the portal, and somebody was saying that his dream was always to play at IU. He's a 40% 3-point shooter this year, who third team All Mountain West. I wonder whether there's any traction there.
You know what? It's funny because they had a big win over someone this year, and I was watching the game, and and at Fox, they come to the half, and they're like, Floyd's Knobs, Indiana. And so they're talking about Floyd's Knobs, Indiana, which that never happens. That's only happened 2 times in the modern history of the invention of the television. And that's when Pat Graham played at IU, and now when Jake Heidbrenner got on the air the other night. But they were. So I played it back and recorded it and sent out a tweet. But because he hit in that game, he had lit them up, and at halftime, I forget. I'll have to go back and look what it was, but he lit them up, and they ended up winning this game. It was a big game, but I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I looked last night because I was a little bit intrigued by it. He made 20. His last 7 games, he made 20 of 36 3-point shots. And he was third team All Mountain West. I'm not saying he's going to come in and he looks like a guy to be a nice piece, like a backup 2-guard or wing or something, because he can shoot the lights out. He shot 40% from 3, made 75 threes this year. So check it out.
Yep. It sounds like you'd be a winner. What's up next for you?
We've got the regional here in town this weekend.
Oh, first of all, how about the Louisville women before I get too past? Talk about big time wins. Miami beats Indiana on their home court. The Louisville women, they go to Austin, Texas, and beat the crap out of them.
They beat the wheels off Texas by over 20 points, 1 point close to 30.
They were up by 30 at one point.
Yeah, they're headed to Seattle, where the number 1 seed Stanford got beat. So they're playing a team actually with a lower seed in Ole Miss in the first game, and then if they win, they must play Iowa for the chance to go to the Final Four, reinforcing the point that Jeff Walz is just a terrific coach. This team struggled for part of January, and he kind of righted the ship, and they started playing better late in the year. Finished second in the ACC tournament, losing to Virginia Tech. But even they had their moments of discord. The weekend before Louisville went to the NCAA tournament, 2 of their freshmen went in the portal. So they had people leaving before the tournament started. But Jeff Walz is a no-nonsense type coach, and it's like, these are my players, and we're going to move on. And they did. And they've got a player who, I think before the season, most people thought would be a first-team All-American. She was honorable mention, but she's capable of being a first-team All-American in Haley Van Lith. And they're a threat. I mean, they're definitely a threat this weekend.
What's up, man? For you?
Friday, Alabama is here playing San Diego State, and Princeton against Creighton. It's not the regional that we thought we had. The 2, 3, and 4 seeds are all beaten, so it should be an Alabama walkover. And they're the closest one to Louisville. They'll have the most fans here. And so up close and personal look at the Alabama basketball student athletes.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. Thank you, Rick Bozich. Appreciate you, my friend.
All right, have a great week, guys.
You as well. The great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you're giving him a follow. He covers everything in all of college sports, especially IU and those around. We've got much more coming up here, brought to you by our good friends down in the Sellersburg area. For those of you down there, go by and see Dr. J. Get that championship smile. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, wow. That's a good point.
What?
That if he goes into the portal, he would have to resign from the service academy. Not sure how that works.
If who goes on? Oh, the Air Force guy? All right, we'll have about 11 or 12 minutes here to wrap things up.
Oh, sounds good.
See, Tobin Anderson, the Fairleigh Dickinson coach, is taking Rick Pitino's place at Iona.
Yeah, I did see that. Didn't take him long, did it?
Nope.
Hey, we've got a lot of great sound we haven't used, man.
We have Dustin. You don't need to use sound. But I do have it if you want to use it.
God damn it. You don't get it.
I still have the Terry Morin that we haven't used. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of the ones we've already used. We already used Mackenzie Holmes, Grace Berger. We did all the women's stuff minus Terry Morin yesterday. And then I've got Miller Kopp and Race Thompson that we haven't used.
Trey Saxon Davis used my picture on his Instagram. Didn't give me credit. There's a picture of him hugging Jalen Chipino. That's my picture. I took that. Yes, it is. Absolutely going to be a welcome sight.
right, here we go.
Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, Hump Day. We're halfway there already. It's the 22nd of March, so March is flying along. Unfortunately, I noticed last night, I almost sent out a tweet that said, wow, just that quick, I'm watching baseball.
I know. It's right.
But that was only because the World Baseball Classic was on. And it was the championship game, USA and China. China. Japan, rather. China.
Yeah.
Japan wins 3-2.
By the way,
Kyle Schwarber jacked one to the second deck to get USA to within one at 3-2. But
did you see what
the picture?
Did you see the stat on Kyle Schwarber? I wish I could. Oh, here it is. So Kyle Schwarber has now hit a home run in the National League wildcard game, the AL wildcard game, the NLDS, the ALDS, the NLCS, the ALCS, World Series, and the World Baseball Classic Championship game. And then our friend Dustin DePuric mentioned all the homers he hit in college.
World Series.
Yep, College World Series. And then there were a couple, the regional and maybe the Big Ten tournament. So on literally every stage, he's hit a home run.
Yes. No one has hit home runs on as many stages as Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Incredible.
Very, very cool. USA loses that, though, 3-2 last night. Damn. We forgot to wish Bob a happy birthday on the air.
I think we mentioned it. We sing happy birthday, but I'm pretty sure we mentioned it.
Did we?
I think so. Well, it's Bob Kravitz's birthday. Happy birthday, Bob. I'm almost positive we mentioned it on the air.
If we didn't, that's going to stink. But happy birthday, Bob. He's not listening.
He's going to go back and watch.
Yeah, the transfer portal will start to become heavier as the tournament pairs out, as teams pair off. Did he say that Louisville had people in the portal while the tournament was going on? Rick?
That might be true. Why?
Yes, they did.
I mean,
there was 3 U of L guys in the portal last week.
Yeah.
Oh, U of L guys.
Yeah.
What'd you think he was talking about?
You think the women's team had 3 players in the portal?
Yeah, because I was talking about the women's team. Yeah, I was like, what?
Oh, that would have been crazy.
Well, but their season's over. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about while the season's still going on. Like, that would be nuts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't think that happened. I don't believe that happened. So
I don't think Bob was embarrassed, Robert. Robert hitting us up on the Andy Moranda hotline said, I sang to him and embarrassed him, referring to my off-air serenade of happy birthday to Bob Kravitz. I would have sang to him on the air had I remembered. But I forgot.
I didn't. Well, it happens. It happens. Got a behind-the-scenes look on YouTube.
I'm not good at remembering things.
But, yeah, I mean, happy birthday to him. And, yeah, I mean, I can't believe baseball season's almost here. Well, like next week is opening week, isn't it? I believe. So that'll be fun.
I have no idea, but what is today? Tomorrow we have basketball.
We do. Sweet 16, Thursday, Friday.
He is. Yeah. I'm trying to pull those games up. I hit the wrong daggone button to get that schedule up to see who we get to watch.
I mean, that's going to be some interesting. You get Michigan State at Kansas, or Michigan State and Kansas State.
All I care about is hoping that Florida Atlantic wins. That would be priceless.
They play Tennessee, and Rick Barnes is not a great coach in March, so there's potential.
Tennessee is not bad though, man.
Tennessee's not bad, but they've been really good in the past, and they've been bounced pretty quickly. UCLA Gonzaga is probably going to be the game to watch of Thursday. That's going to be the late night tip off. Michigan State, Kansas State, Arkansas, UConn might be a sneaky good game.
Pete asked, losses of players or states. Well, losses of players is one thing. Would he lose any coaches that the players and recruits work with so closely? No, those coaches are not going anywhere. And if it was, I'm not saying anything negative about him, but it wouldn't be a gigantic loss. I don't think that when you're going to lose, you're going to have 6 new faces already. So you got guys coming in. So they're coming to play at Indiana. Cups was being recruited prior to this staff being in place. So he's fine. Ja'Kai Newton, I think that Mike Woodson has done a good enough job establishing that relationship that's not a problem. So no, I don't think that would always. I don't think that'll be a problem. Major League Baseball opening day, thanks to Mike, is March 30th.
Here we go.
Tennessee got to basically beat up Duke. Philip says, I bet they get refed tighter against FAU.
Well, you heard what Dusty Mays.
That would be so awesome to see Dusty roll on. Greene County boy from just right, not 15 minutes from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios. He is where he's from. Of course, a former IU manager. He has to be. Now I know that Lawrence Frank went to the NBA, but I don't know of any former IU managers that are college head coaches or became college head coaches. And
not as common in college, but I feel like it happens quite a bit. Like in the NBA, you get that, but not as much in college for whatever reason. But did you hear, to that point that Philip's making, did you hear what Dusty May said after they won their second game against FDU, knowing that they were going to play Tennessee?
Nope.
He made the comment that we're going to go practice rugby style to prepare for Tennessee because he knows that game's going to be physical.
Well, and they are letting them play in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
From what I've seen.
And on the men's and the women's side.
I was getting ready to say that. On the women's side, is just because they're not very good officials. There was some really bad calls.
Yeah. In particular, that game was there was some tough officiating in that game.
Jennifer says that Buffalo's interested in Kenya Hunter. She says, she also said she has one assistant coach that she wants gone. Whoops.
I know who that is. I won't mention
Robert
names.
doesn't believe any of the Sweet 16 games on Thursday or Friday will be bad. I agree with you. Tomorrow, UConn and Arkansas. I got to take Arkansas. You've got Keith Smart on that staff.
There you go.
UCLA, Gonzaga. I'm taking UCLA.
I think that's going to be a great game. And wasn't it? It'll be like a kind of a rematch. I'm sure they played since then, but remember that Adam Morrison game and UCLA had Darren Collison and I can't remember who else on, but Gonzaga a big lead and UCLA came back. I think it was either Sweet 16 or Elite 8, and it's that image of Adam Morrison crying at midcourt before the game was even over.
Also tomorrow, we just talked about our boy Dustin May. He's in action at 9:00. They are the prime time game, baby, taking on Tennessee as the 9 seed. Also tomorrow, Kansas State, Michigan State. So I'll be pulling for the Big Ten team so we can get Big Ten team. Michigan State is not the one I thought it was going to be, but they have a chance. As we're getting closer to wrapping up here, I want to thank Bob Kravitz, of course, from The Athletic, as always, for being with us. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star. And Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Of course, Dustin Schutte. John, the producer. And most importantly, you guys. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. Looking forward to tomorrow, previewing tomorrow night's games. And talking to our guests tomorrow, which normally are Matt Taylor from the Colts, Kyler Staley from thehoos.com, and Chris Denari of the Pacers. That's going to pretty much wrap it up. But don't forget, for those of you down Florida way, especially in and around Amelia Island, Sarasota, the Ugly Grouper, the food is fantastic. It's awesome. We're back tomorrow to do this all again, and I can't wait. Dustin Schutte, look forward to it.
I will be here.
Me too. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana